Welcome to Living Fuel TV. I'm KC Craichy with my special guest, John Peterson again.
All right,
John.
brother. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Continuing with John, you know, John, one of the things I say is fascinating about you is your knowledge of the history of athletic training and performance training and you know, bodybuilding, the whole thing. Would you take us back a little bit to, you know, there's a lot of people that lift weights now that are just in fascinating shape. In fact, we have many people right now that are pro athletes and pro trainers, and you know, they really are leading edge. In fact, we've had some on this show, and we're really on the subject right now because people are saying, oh my goodness, it's 6 to 8 weeks till summer. You know, how do I get there by summer? You know, so we'll talk nutrition later, but right now you have such a unique approach, and the people that I want here on the show for our viewers is somebody that brings something different to the party, and you bring something very different. In fact, I know no one who does what you do and knows what you know in the history of using your body to work out. I mean, I can go to a hotel room just like you, like when you stayed here last night, before you even came out of your room, you had done a complete workout. Now we'll go into the details of that.
500 push-ups, for instance, right?
Exactly.
All right.
So let's go in. Let's take us back. Take us back to how this got started.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I mentioned Charles Atlas.
Yes.
Well, what was really fascinating is who motivated Charles Atlas. Now, Charles Atlas, he actually went through that bully kicking sand in his face story. That's all true. But who did he have to write to? Who was the Charles Atlas hero to? It turned out to be a guy by the name of Alois P. Swoboda, who had a bodybuilding course in the early 1900s, actually the late 1890s, and he copyrighted it in 1905. Swobodaism. And he literally taught these same principles of isometric contraction, dynamic self-resistance, utilizing one muscle to resist another, power calisthenics, that we refer to power calisthenics. He integrated it all into a training system, and Charles Atlas actually made the statement, everything I know, I learned from A.P. Swoboda. So what do you think of that?
How about 105 years ago? Do you know, it's interesting, that same time, the average sugar intake was 5 pounds a year, and now it's 170, but that's another story. Go ahead.
Well, back then, 2/3 of all Americans weren't overweight or obese either.
Exactly.
Okay?
We'll continue. Where to go from there?
Well, where it went from there. Earl Lederman, Charles Atlas, Farmer Burns. These were all athletic trainers, bodybuilding enthusiasts. Another guy that had a course very similar to what we teach. His name was Bernard McFadden. Bernard Body Love McFadden. At
the same time?
At the same time.
I remember the comic book ads because I was a comic book collector back there. And I remember the comic book ads with the Charles Atlas kick sand in your face ad. It was so compelling. But go ahead.
You know, originally though, Charles Atlas won Bernard McFadden's contest for the world's most perfectly developed man. He did it in 1921 and then in 1922 for Physical Culture magazine. So for the first 10 years, Charles Atlas's program was promoted almost exclusively in Bernard McFadden's magazine. But in 1929, a young advertising executive, Charles Roman, comes to Charles Atlas and says, you're missing the boat. There are adolescent teenage boys that we could be hitting this market. That's how they ended up in comic books. Kids, you know, in that 13 to 19 age range that had sand kicked in their face. We're going through adolescence. We're feeling inferior. They could write to Charles Atlas. And millions of them did, by the way.
I was one of them.
Yes. So, well, I didn't actually have to write to him because I got it from my grandfather. You know? It was great. But it was all body weight, self-resistance, using your mind to contract your muscles. In fact, Casey, in the previous segment, you were showing them how to use dynamic self-resistance, right? Okay. Now, what does weight training actually do? Answer is really very simple. You're using amplified
time under tension.
Right. You're using amplified gravity against which we are contracting muscle, right? That's all it is. Nothing really magical about it. But you can learn how to accomplish the same goal without even having to use the weight once you know.
It's fascinating. So we have athletes like Rocky Marciano and so that use the system.
In fact, he was a Charles Atlas student. Herschel Walker, in his newest book, makes mention of how he was inspired by the old Charles Atlas ads. Even though he never took the system, it ends up intuitively he started doing the same exercises.
So Marciano was known to have one of the hardest punches in history.
Oh, after getting knocked around for 13 rounds, he finished a fight with one punch. How many guys today could do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Herschel Walker, of course, is one of the finest athletes ever.
One of the finest football players in history, but get this, at age 48, he entered a mixed martial arts competition.
Recently, that's now,
Recently, just this last couple months ago, and he won. So, and what is the core of Herschel Walker's training? Believe it or not, he does 2,000 push-ups each day, 2,000 sit-ups, and
didn't you say he started out by doing 100 push-ups every commercial that came on TV?
That's right.
So hey, on the commercials, get down and give us 100.
Yeah, make use of that time. Another great athlete who, in his story, he's done the same thing. Is well, not only was there Rocky Marciano, Joe DiMaggio, who was a huge athlete when I was a little boy. Ricky Henderson in modern times.
The base stealing Ricky Henderson?
The base stealing Ricky Henderson, the guy known for diving in head first. Yeah, one of the fewest of injuries, and yet he did some of the most spectacular stunts. And Ricky Henderson, he trained almost exclusively on push-ups, sit-ups, body weight exercises that were natural to him.
You know, J.D. Drew has been on our show. He's a good friend of ours. And
yes.
J.D. Uses the high reach maneuver to strengthen his shoulder.
Oh, from John McSweeney.
He had, at one point several years ago, hurt his shoulder, and now his shoulder's in great shape, and he just loves that high reach, the McSweeney high reach.
We have a lot of people who have the same experience. They can actually restructure, even cure bad shoulders with that exercise.
Yeah, it's terrific. So John, I consider you the modern day Charles Atlas.
Well, thank you,
and I think
brother.
people need to know more about what you're teaching. It's absolutely fascinating, and I have really enjoyed it because I find that with the system, I don't get the tweaks. Like when I get in the gym, you know, sometimes it's just overhead press with 200-something pounds, and then your hand hurts so much here. The next time, I can't even press. It's just like little tweaking, nagging injuries that it just is maddening because you're making progress and you got a little tweak in your shoulder or you got a little hamstring tweak or whatever the case may be. So the system that you have, I believe, should be a part of everybody's systems, even if you're a weight room kind of guy. I mean, there's a lot of athletes who they have to be in the weight room, or at least their trainers make, that's the direction they have to go.
If you're a lineman in football, you better believe it. They need that kind of resistance.
But they also need the flexibility, because the other thing that I find with these tiger moves, like when you tighten your fist and you go down as hard as you can, squeezing your muscles as hard as you can, and you come back up, your muscle, you're from your fingertip all the way up to your spine is getting a workout in a very fantastic way, and a weight. When you lift a weight, you're a lot stronger this way than you are this way. So you're really not getting a perfect tension unless you're doing something like this. And this doesn't result in injury. It's really fantastic how it works.
No, it actually protects the tendons and ligaments. That's another major problem. When the muscle fatigues through standard weight training, quite often what happens is the resistance is transferred from the belly of the muscle to the joint. Okay? So we overstress the joints, and the joints become destabilized.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to get into a lot more. We're going to actually demonstrate some of this stuff. We're going to talk about the concept of thinking into the muscle. Now, I didn't get that when you first taught me that 5 years ago. Thinking the muscle, what does that mean? I'm thinking in the muscle. But it's really fantastic when you can actually cause the muscle to cramp.
Yes, you
and
can.
Allow it to stay cramped until the cramp releases, which is actually a workout in and of itself.
Well, Bernard McFadden, but especially Alois P. Swoboda referred to this as muscle control.
It's fantastic. We'll get into this later.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, John. It was awesome.
Thank you.
God bless you, and have a great day.